This is free TV. Starting now, how beer saved the world.
In the 21st century, human beings are masters of the planet. Behind us lie 10,000 years of civilization, bending nature to our will. And it all started with one great invention. Not the wheel, not the car, not the plane. The greatest invention of all was beer.
Beer has changed the course of human history, not once, not twice, but over and over again, right from the very beginning.
It sowed the world's first farmlands.
The agricultural revolution came about because of the imperative, the need to make beer.
It hewed the world's first wonders.
We wouldn't have the pyramids if it weren't for beer.
Beer established modern healthcare.
Beer and science go hand in hand.
And beer shaped America.
Beer is the secret history of America. It's in our DNA.
It even ended one of history's great scandals.
Beer was part, if not all, of the motivation for ending child labor.
And most important of all, it gave us something to drink while watching the ball game. This is the story of the greatest invention of all time.
It's an amazing story, and one that really hasn't been told.
Until now.
Without beer, we'd probably still be living in caves.
Human beings like us have been around for about 100,000 years. For the first 90,000, we were nomads, hunter-gatherers. All we had to worry about was food.
The life of the hunter-gatherer is probably not as hard as some people would think. They spend about 2 hours a day gathering grains and hunting, and they spend a lot of time socializing.
Then, in 9000 BC, something happened that changed the world forever. In the Middle East, hunter-gatherers stopped wandering and started farming. They swapped caves for houses and created the first civilization, Mesopotamia. It was the beginning of the world as we know it. Historians call it the Agricultural Revolution. But the question is, why did it happen? We asked at the local pub.
Women.
Pumpkins, potatoes. He just got tired of moving rocks.
I have no idea. I don't know.
In fact, the Agricultural Revolution was started by barley. For years, experts assumed it was to make bread. But now there's a new theory that has shaken the world of science.
The agricultural revolution is all about beer, and beer is all about barley.
For food scientist Dr. Patrick Hayes, it's an open and shut case.
There's no doubt that barley was domesticated to make beer.
Archaeologist Dr. Pat McGovern backs up the barley for beer theory.
The reason it was domesticated at 9000 BC is that they were using it to make beer.
The proof? Residue from ancient jugs.
Turned out that this residue was what's called beer stone. Now this is evidence then that we had a vessel that would have originally been used for beer.
McGovern has found evidence of beer more than 3,000 years before anyone was baking bread. But hold on a minute. Brewing is a complex science. So how could primitive people have invented beer? Dr. Thomas Shellhammer is a fermentation scientist, a beer buffet, and he thinks they stumbled across it by complete and utter accident.
About 10,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers were collecting wild barley as a source of nutrition. During one of these collections, they were taking barley and placing it into some sort of collection device. This group then go on a hunt.
While they're away, a natural miracle occurs.
First, we get some rains, and these rains moisten that barley, and that barley begins to grow.
As it grows, it produces sugars. Now it needs more water. Luckily, it rains again.
And at this point, we have a substantial amount of rain, enough rain that this vessel becomes basically full with liquid.
Now the real magic happens. Wild yeast converts the barley sugars into CO2 and alcohol. A few days later, the hunters return.
And they look inside this vessel and they see a bubbly mixture. And someone takes the chance to actually taste it. And taking a taste, they think, wow, this is something that's very, very different. This is the very first accidental beer, and from this point on, things will never be the same.
Humans hadn't touched a drink in 3 million years of evolution. Suddenly, life looked a lot more interesting.
They said, this stuff is good. How can we make more of that?
Today, experts like Dr. Hayes believe it was beer's feel-good factor that changed the world forever.
The intoxicating effects of that beer surely persuaded people to continue propagating barley. And that in turn starts this whole cascade of inventions that make for better beer.
The thirst for more beer and more barley to make it with created an explosion of new technologies and a domino effect.
You're going to get tired of going out with a stick and trying to poke a hole into hard ground. And so what does that lead to? Well, that's going to lead to the plow. Once you start opening up ground, some of that ground is not going to be suitable for agriculture unless you irrigate it.
A host of inventions we still rely on today came about thanks to a taste for beer.